How could I have known that the young man who helped me set up the coffee machine would eventually walk into my house? And I'd realize I had left my toys and some very personal clothing on the couch. Let alone that everything would shift after that moment. I had been alone, but when I went to retrieve that coffee maker, thanks to the man at the store, I found myself not alone. Who could have imagined that an inexperienced young man would cross my path and things would take such an unexpected turn? Let me start from the very beginning. I'm 60 years old, divorced for 15 years, and have lived alone for a long time. Naturally, I had my private moments and personal belongings. Things that were just for me. I used them so frequently that I didn't even realize when I carelessly left them visible in the middle of the living room. Maybe it was a habit, or maybe it was my way of filling the emptiness of being alone. Either way, that morning seemed entirely ordinary. I only planned to buy a coffee maker and continue with my day. But that young man, Jake, completely changed things when he offered to help. The moment I opened the door and let him in with the box, I had no idea that what seemed like an ordinary day was about to become extraordinary. Jake was 23, lively, friendly, and full of enthusiasm as he entered my home with the coffee maker. His gaze swept over every corner of the room. And that's when his eyes fixed on something. My toys, and those personal items I'd left on the couch. They seemed so commonplace to me that I didn't even notice them. But to him, they clearly stood out. Jake gave a slight smile and moved toward the living room, saying, "You live alone, don't you?" His voice held a playful curiosity. My face flushed bright red, and it all happened so suddenly and embarrassingly that I didn't know how to respond. I had only expected someone to come and set up a coffee machine. I never meant for anyone to see these private parts of my life. My solitude had always been mine, and I didn't want to share it. "Jake, please, let's pretend you didn't see any of this," I said, my voice shaking slightly. It felt like everything I had carefully kept to myself was crumbling. Jake gave me a knowing smile and said, "Whatever you say, but you know, some things are hard to overlook. They kind of demand attention, just like you do." His words made me even more flustered. I turned my head slightly and muttered under my breath, trying to regain my composure. Jake, with his usual warmth and sincerity, continued, "It's completely natural to have these kinds of things when you live alone. We all have our needs. But sometimes, this kind of stuff just isn't enough, is it?" There was a subtle emphasis in his words, as if he was trying to connect with me in a way that was both bold and gentle. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and in that instant, something started to flicker between us. A connection, an unspoken pull, an undeniable chemistry. Jake's gaze held mine, and with each passing moment, we were growing closer. Everything he said seemed to touch a deeper part of me, and that's when I realized that what I was feeling was different. "I noticed it the first time you came to get the coffee maker," Jake said, his eyes holding something new, something intense. "You gave me a feeling I've never had before." I paused for a moment, unsure of how to respond. My emotions were all over the place, but I could tell resisting this attraction would be nearly impossible. "You did the same for me," I said with a small smile. "Otherwise, I never would have let you help and come inside." I said that, but deep down, I knew I felt something much deeper. Jake had gotten under my skin. His body, his demeanor, his way of speaking. It was all so relaxed, so charming. It was becoming harder to hide what I felt. and I could sense the growing tension between us. After a brief silence, I said, "I've been in these jeans and this shirt all day. They're suffocating me. Let me go change into something more comfortable. Make yourself at home." Jake's eyes lingered on me, and though I tried to look away, I couldn't. The pull was too strong. I felt drawn to him in a way I hadn't expected. As I went upstairs, I changed into a sleek, form-fitting dress and touched up my makeup. When I came back down, I saw Jake standing by the living room door, his gaze on me. Whether intentionally or not, for a moment I hesitated, letting my thoughts swirl. All right, I thought. You're making your intentions clear. This could be the jackpot for me. I decided to act like I didn't notice him staring and moved toward him, asking playfully, "Are you single? Got a girlfriend, or do you spend your nights alone?" A spark ignited inside me as I looked at him. The tension between us was palpable now, and every glance seemed to carry deeper meaning. When I saw the mix of excitement and shy curiosity in his eyes, I smiled. "If you finish setting up the coffee maker, how about we make some coffee and chat? You can tell me all about yourself." I moved closer to him, and with each step, I felt a warmth inside me build, pulling me closer. Jake sat down in a chair, but he kept shifting, clearly uncomfortable. I took another step and pulled my chair next to his, sitting down with a purposeful, calm movement. My skirt shifted slightly, but I was aware of every little detail. Jake's gaze followed me, stopping just short of meeting mine. I could feel his attention, how engaged he was. "Did you get impatient waiting for this?" I teased, trying to add a playful tone to the growing tension. Jake, slightly flustered, asked, "How old are you?" "I thought you were 50. A sparkle danced in my eyes. Did he really think I was 50? It was an odd compliment, but flattering. I couldn't help but smile. "Do you like 50-year-olds better?" I teased, raising an eyebrow and studying him closely. Each word, each glance, brought us even closer together. "No, that's not what I meant," Jake stammered, looking shy. "You look so young and beautiful." His words rang in my head, and a warmth spread through me. But at the same time, I felt a little uneasy. The distance between us seemed to close, but I could still feel some tension lingering. After a brief pause, I asked, "Do you have a girlfriend? How do you spend your nights?" I was both eager and nervous to hear his response. Jake lowered his voice, his eyes locking with mine. "I'm alone," he said, and in that moment, I truly believed him. But there was something about his loneliness that suggested it wasn't a choice. We stood there silently, gazing at one another. I knew then that I had to make a move. "That's not how tonight is going to go," I said firmly, my voice more determined. My eyes met his, and every word carried weight. Everything was about to change. "Jake, come," I added, my tone lower but inviting as I motioned toward the bedroom. Without hesitation, I turned and heard his footsteps behind me, his breath quickening. When we reached the bedroom, Jake stopped near the door, his shoulders tense, but his expression was expectant. I faced him, sensing a mix of hesitation and anticipation. "Jake, are you ready?" I asked calmly, stepping closer with a small smile. "I've got experience, as you can tell. Relax. No need to be nervous." I placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Even that small touch seemed to calm his nerves while fueling the excitement within him. In that moment, Jake's youthful energy met my own years of confidence. I slid the straps of my dress off, letting it fall to the floor. I could feel Jake's eyes on me, his curiosity and desire mixing with something deeper. I moved closer, and our silence almost felt like a bond. My fingertips lightly brushed his cheek, and then I waited for him to make the next move. Jake hesitated for a moment, but finally he leaned toward me. His hands rested on my waist, and his lips found mine. His kiss carried the boldness of youth mixed with a touch of inexperience, but that only made me want him more. I slowly pulled back and made my way to the bed, letting myself sink onto it, savoring each movement. I looked at Jake, still standing there, unsure of what to do. "Jake, come here," I whispered, my voice soft but enticing. I patted the space beside me on the bed, inviting him to lie down. He slowly approached and carefully lay down next to me. The air around us was thick with anticipation, and I could feel the intensity building. I placed my hand gently on his chest and asked, Had I ever imagined that the young man who helped me with the coffee machine would come into my home? And I'd realize I had left my toys and some very personal clothing on the couch. Not to mention that everything would shift after that moment. I had been alone, but when I went to fetch that coffee maker, thanks to the man from the store, I found myself no longer alone. Who would have guessed that a young man, inexperienced as he was, would change everything for me? Let me explain everything from the start. I'm 60 years old, divorced for 15 years, and have lived alone for quite a while. Naturally, I had my private moments and personal things, just for me. I used them so often that I didn't even notice when I left them out in plain view in the living room. Maybe it was just a habit, or perhaps it was a way of dealing with the loneliness. Either way, that morning seemed like any other. I only meant to buy a coffee machine and continue with my day. But that young man, Jake, offered to help and completely altered everything. The moment I opened the door and let him inside with the box, I had no clue that the ordinary day would turn into something remarkable. Jake, at 23, was eager, warm, and full of life. As he entered with the coffee maker, his eyes roamed around the room. And that's when they landed on something. My toys and personal clothes I had left on the couch. I was so accustomed to them being there that I hadn't even realized how it must look. Jake gave a soft smile as he moved toward the living room and said, "You live alone, don't you?" His voice was curious, almost teasing. My face turned red, and I felt completely embarrassed. It had happened so fast, and I wasn't sure how to handle it. I was only expecting someone to help with the coffee machine. I never intended for anyone to see these private aspects of my life. My solitude was mine, and I didn't want to share it. "Jake, please, let's pretend you didn't see that," I said, my voice trembling slightly. It felt like everything I had kept hidden was suddenly exposed. Jake looked at me and smiled. "Whatever you say, but you know some things are hard to ignore. They kind of demand attention, just like you do." His words made me even more flustered, and I turned my head slightly, trying to regain control. Jake, in his usual warm and honest manner, continued, "It's perfectly normal to have things like that when you live alone. We all have needs, but sometimes it's just not enough, is it?" His words carried an unspoken connection, a subtle attempt to reach out to me. Our eyes met for a brief second, and in that instant, something ignited between us. An unspoken attraction, a quiet intensity. Jake's gaze stayed locked on me, and as each second passed, I felt us getting closer. Every word he spoke seemed to touch me in a way I hadn't expected. And that's when I realized the feelings I was having was something new. I noticed it the first time you came to get the coffee maker, Jake said, his eyes glowing with something unspoken. You made me feel something I've never felt before. I stopped, unsure of what to say. My emotions were all over the place, but resisting this pull felt impossible. You did the same for me, I said with a small smile. Otherwise, I wouldn't have accepted your help or let you into my house. I said that, but I knew deep down I felt something much stronger. Jake had gotten under my skin. His presence, his demeanor, his easy way of speaking. Everything about him was so relaxed and charming. I could no longer hide what I felt, and the tension between us was undeniable. After a brief pause, I said, I've been in these jeans and this shirt all day. They're uncomfortable. Let me go change into something more comfortable. Make yourself at home. Jake's gaze lingered on me, and though I tried to look away, I couldn't. I felt drawn to him in a way I couldn't explain. I went upstairs, changed into a sleek dress, and touched up my makeup. When I came down, I saw Jake standing near the living room door, his eyes on me, whether intentional or not. I hesitated for a moment, letting my mind wander. All right, I thought. You're making your intentions clear. This is the jackpot, so let's go with it. I decided to pretend I didn't notice his gaze and walked toward him, playfully asking, Are you single? Got a girlfriend? Or do you spend your nights alone? My heart raced as I looked at him. The tension between us was so thick now that every word and every movement seemed to carry weight. When I saw the mix of excitement and shy curiosity in his eyes, I smiled. If you finish setting up the coffee machine, how about we make some coffee and chat? You can tell me all about yourself. As I moved closer, I felt a warmth building inside me, pulling me toward him. Jake sat in a chair but kept shifting, struggling to get comfortable. I took another step forward and pulled my chair closer to his, sitting down with calm determination. My skirt inched up just a little, but I was aware of every moment. Jake's eyes followed my movements, stopping just shy of meeting mine. I could feel his attention, how focused he was. Did you get impatient waiting for this? I teased, trying to lighten the mood despite the rising tension. Jake, slightly flustered, asked, How old are you? I thought you were 50. A smile spread across my face. Was he really guessing I was 50? It was an unexpected compliment, but oddly flattering. I smiled back. Do you prefer 50-year-olds? I teased, studying him closely. Every word between us brought us closer together. No, that's not what I meant, Jake said shyly. You look so young and beautiful. His words echoed in my mind, warming me from the inside. But I also felt a bit uneasy. The distance between us seemed to shrink, but I could feel the tension still lingering. After a pause, I asked, Do you have a girlfriend? How do you spend your nights? I was eager to hear his answer, but a bit nervous. Jake lowered his voice, his eyes locking with mine. I'm alone, he said. At that moment, I truly believed him. But I could sense that it wasn't a loneliness he was happy with. We stood in silence, locked in a gaze that told me everything. I knew it was time to make a move. That's not how tonight is going to go, I said firmly, my voice calm yet determined. My eyes never left his, and I could feel the weight of every word. Everything was about to change. Jake, come, I said, my voice softer but inviting. I motioned toward the bedroom and turned, certain that he would follow. His footsteps echoed behind me as we entered the bedroom. He stopped by the door, tense but expectant. I turned to face him. "Jake, are you ready?" I asked, my tone calm and steady. I stepped closer, offering him a reassuring smile. "I've got experience. Relax, no need to be nervous." I placed my hand gently on his shoulder, easing some of his tension. In that moment, Jake's youthful energy met my own confidence, and the attraction between us was undeniable. I slid the straps of my dress down, letting it fall to the floor. I could feel his eyes on me, curiosity, awe, and desire mixing in his gaze. I moved closer to him, the silence between us thick with anticipation. My fingers gently caressed his cheek, and I waited for him to make the next move. Jake hesitated for a moment, but finally, he leaned in. His hands found my waist, and his lips brushed mine. His kiss was a mix of bravery and inexperience, but that made it even more intoxicating. I pulled back slowly, then moved toward the bed, letting myself sink onto it. Jake stood still for a moment, unsure of what to do next. "Jake, come here," I whispered, my voice soft but urging. I gestured toward the bed, inviting him to lie beside me. He moved closer, carefully lying down next to me. The air felt heavy with anticipation as I placed my hand gently on his chest. "Have you ever?" I asked softly.